If you're having a long, hard day, I have the perfect solution for you. You need to pour a big glass of red wine and you need to make my vegan hamburger helper. It's such an easy, delicious recipe. It's a one-pot shop and it really sticks to your ribs. So let me show you how to make it. I promise you're gonna love it. Hello YouTube, I am so excited to have you join me in my kitchen today because I'm going to show you how to make my most popular recipe, vegan hamburger helper. So this is the #1 recipe on my blog. I've had countless people make it, tag me on Instagram, tell me they love it, and probably my favorite thing to hear is that people serve it to non-vegans and they either can't tell or they don't care that it's vegan because it's so good. And that's the point. This is one of the most comforting dishes you can make. I've streamlined this recipe to where it's all done in one pot and it uses a lot of pantry staples. So you probably have most of these ingredients in your cabinet. First up, we're gonna saute 1 whole onion and we're gonna cook this down to where it's nice and sweet and caramelized. Do a few slices through. So to the pan, we're gonna add some olive oil, 2 tablespoons. And we'll put this on medium-high heat. While the onions are cooking, I'm gonna chop some garlic. Now, you can put 1 to 2 cloves, or you could put 5 to 6. I love garlic, so I'm gonna put a lot. Make a huge mess when you're chopping garlic. You wanna make the biggest mess. Do a rough chop. You really wanna cook the garlic and the onions down. We're really trying to caramelize them and give them that golden color so that they're rich in flavor. This is the kind of dish, if you're having a bad day and you're not in the mood, make this because it'll make you feel better. This is starting to get translucent. We're going to continue to cook it, but we're going to go ahead and throw in our vegan sausage. So this is not sponsored, but I find that for this recipe, you really don't have a replacement for this. This is beyond sausage. This is the hot Italian. You could use their hamburger meat, but I find that the flavor of the hot Italian sausage is so on point that it's just incredible. We're just gonna do a rough chop of this and then we'll transfer it to the pot and then we can continue to break it up with the spatula. Now if you're really opposed to using Beyond Sausage, you could use mushrooms. You could use shiitake mushrooms or cremini. You would just do a rough chop and then I would add maybe an extra splash of soy sauce just to season them. And as you can see, the onions and the garlic are they're just melting. They're just getting softer and softer. Now you'll notice the bottom of the pan is starting to brown a little bit. That's okay. You want that to happen because that's flavor. And we're gonna deglaze the pan when we add our fire roasted tomatoes. The liquid from those tomatoes is gonna bring all that up. Now we're gonna start adding our spices. And the first one is chipotle chili powder. This is a really important ingredient because it's slightly sweet and smoky and almost buttery in flavor. It's also spicy, so it gives the hamburger helper a nice kick. So we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of that. At this point, you can lower the heat because we don't wanna burn the spices. We're gonna add smoked paprika. There's something about this bright red powder. Provides a really meaty flavor. For a little bit of heat, we're gonna add some cayenne pepper. We're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground sage. So ground sage is another one of those spices that taste meaty. So this in combination with the smoked paprika and the chipotle chili powder. So every time you add it, keep it moving because you don't want it to burn. But I've reduced the heat to medium low, so we're good. Now, even though we've already added onion and garlic, I want to add more onion and garlic flavor. So we're going to do that by using onion powder and garlic powder. So 1 tablespoon of onion powder and 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. And what I always say about onion powder and garlic powder is they have a different type of flavor than fresh onion and fresh garlic. So I like to use them in my savory recipes. And last but not least, in the spices, we're gonna add some nutritional yeast. This is an ingredient that you're not necessarily gonna pick up on when you're eating it, but it's gonna give the hamburger helper that cheesy, comforting, umami flavor that we want. Oh yeah. So now we're gonna add our fire roasted tomatoes. So this is an important ingredient because they are fire roasted, so we're gonna get that char flavor, and also they're juicy and they have liquid, and that's gonna cook into the pasta and make the hamburger helper super thick and juicy. So let's give this a stir. And now that we've added the tomatoes, I'm gonna crank the heat up just a little bit. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce or tamari. Once again, you won't necessarily know that there's soy sauce in this, but because it has umami, it's gonna make the dish taste incredibly flavorful and savory. Next up, we're gonna add our vegan cheddar cheese. So you can use your favorite vegan cheddar cheese brand. I like to use the shreds for this, but if you buy a block, you can just shred it and add it. So once the cheese is melted, we're gonna add our pasta and our water. And then we wanna give the pasta just a little bit of a head start. So we'll bring it to a simmer, then we're gonna put the lid on top and we're gonna bake it in the oven. At this point, I wanna give the mixture a little bit of a taste to see what's going on with the salt level. Oh man. Oh man. That is so flavorful. Sprinkling the salt. Now, this mixture should taste a little saltier than you would like because we are adding pasta. So remember that. For the noodles, you can use whatever noodles you want. I am using the cavatappi number 87. Is that really what this is called? I'm basically using a squiggly macaroni noodle. So we're gonna add the pasta straight to the pot. I know some of you might be shook, like, don't you have to cook the pasta? No, you don't. You do not have to boil a separate pot of water and cook the pasta and drain it. This is a one pot shop. Now we're gonna cover the pasta with water. So like I said, just barely cover it. What's interesting about this recipe is the starch from the pasta noodles, instead of cooking it separately and then straining that, it's all gonna cook in this pot, and it's gonna help thicken the sauce and make this hamburger helper super rich and creamy. So now that we've covered the pasta just barely with water, we're gonna place the lid on top and bake it in our preheated 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes. So the hamburger helper has been baking for 30 minutes. Now we're gonna do something that's gonna push this recipe over the top. We're gonna add crispy onions and vegan Parmesan cheese to the top. Then we're gonna bake it until that's crispy for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then it's done. This feeds a lot of people. I forgot to mention that. This isn't like 1 to 2 servings. So as you can see, the noodles have absorbed most of that liquid. At this point, the pasta is super al dente, but we're gonna cook it for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, so it'll be perfect. Now for the fun part, crispy onions. So you might remember these guys from the green bean casserole that your mom would make or wouldn't make. My mom never made that. I don't even know how I had green bean casserole. I remember eating it. Anyways, we're using the crispy onions from that classic American dish, and we're putting it on top Next up, vegan Parmesan. Your favorite brand. So now we're gonna pop it back in the oven, uncovered, and we're gonna cook it until the top is golden brown. So this is what we're looking for. There's some nice browning. The edges are bubbling. You know what? Let me sneak a little bite just to make sure it's perfect. Five stars. It really is so savory and delicious. It has a perfect level of spice, like tickles your mouth. You just want to keep eating more. And that crispy cheese onion top really makes it for me. I mean, it really makes it special.